Syria affirms that the talk about political and constitutional legitimacy in Syria is the exclusive right of the Syrian people. Lavrov says Russia and France have agreed on the need of a peaceful solution to the crisis in Syria, but they differ over the way to achieve it. Fabius says there can be no military solution to the crisis in Syria, and the solution is only political through dialogue. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Yarado Krikorian with the news in English. A source at the Foreign and Expatriates Ministry has said that the US, French, British foreign ministers' press conference in Paris yesterday has exposed the reality of their objectives against Syria and their effort to jump to conclusions before the results of the national dialogue among the Syrians in order to impose their will on the Syrian people in favor of those who have been appointed by the US and its allies to serve as tools to execute their objectives. The ministry said that any talks about political and constitutional legitimacy in Syria is the exclusive right of the Syrian people, that neither the USA nor its allies or tools are allowed to claim the right to confiscate or to give themselves the authority to impose their will on the Syrian Arab people in this respect. The source added that President Bashar al-Assad is the legitimate president who has been chosen by the Syrian people, and he will remain as such as long as the Syrian people want him to be. President al-Assad is exercising his jurisdictions, the source went on, in accordance with the constitution that has been approved by the Syrian people, and anyone who does not like this reality does not have to go to the Geneva conference. The source pointed out that Syria has on several occasions voiced commitment to a political solution based on dialogue among the Syrians under a Syrian leadership in a manner that enables the Syrian people to delineate their own future. Syria affirms today, this source said, the need for any political process that is agreed upon internationally to respect the Syrian people's options and to keep away from any attempts to confiscate their will in advance. The source concluded its statement saying that those countries, in accordance with the responsibilities laid on them by the UN Charter in their capacity as permanent UN Security Council members, should work sincerely and earnestly in order to respect international law and the rights and principles stipulated in the Charter, instead of working to impose their will on countries to shake up their stability, sometimes through threats with aggression and orders, others with actual direct or indirect aggression through their agents and tools. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has affirmed that no differences existed between Russia and France regarding a peaceful solution to the crisis in Syria, and that there were differences about the way to reach such a solution. In a joint press conference with his French counterpart Laurent Fabius in Moscow, Lavrov said there was an understanding between the two sides and the need to hold the Geneva II conference as soon as possible, affirming the need of the opposition coalition's commitment to attend the conference. He pointed out that his country submitted to the Investigation Committee on Chemical Weapons inquiries about chemical material brought from outside Syrian borders. He called on the UN investigation team to return to Syria to complete their work in a number of sites so that their conclusions would be accurate and professional in service of justice. Lavrov pointed out that the UN investigators were not entitled to identify the side that was responsible for the use of chemical weapons, and that this remained the mission of the UN Security Council. Lavrov called on international and regional sides to work for the convention of the Geneva II conference and for the implementation of the Russian-American initiative on chemical weapons in Syria, and to stop leveling accusations against Syria and threats with the use of force. Lavrov said Presidents Putin and François Hollande had proposed during the Group of 20 summit to set a specific day for the convention of the International Conference on Syria in Geneva, but other sides taking part in the summit did not agree to that proposal. On his part, French Foreign Minister Fabius said that there cannot be a military solution to the crisis in Syria and that the solution can only be political through dialogue. He called on all parties in Syria to resort to dialogue and to stop the bloodshed. He continued to play his role as a lawyer for the terrorists in Syria, promoting the accusations of the Syrian government of using chemical weapons in al-Ghouta. Syria has affirmed that the Commission of Inquiry on Syria continues to stumble in a maze of exaggeration and disinformation, depending on undocumented testimonies of fugitives wanted in criminal cases who are living in countries neighboring Syria, or on media information circulated by sources hostile to Syria, a thing that has turned the Commission's reports into messages of support for Takfiri extremists. Syria's permanent representative to the UN in Geneva, Dr. Faisal al-Hamwi, said Syria has advised the Commission since it began its work to avoid falling into pitfalls and to maintain truth and objectivity, and has provided the High Commissioner's Office with more than 250 documents and communiques refuting the allegations of the parties involved in the bloodshed in Syria. However, al-Hamwi added, the Commission brushed aside all this and persisted in politicization and exaggeration. The Commission, al-Hamwi pointed out, has admitted the presence of outside supporters of the armed groups who are providing them with political cover and financial and military assistance. The Commission, however, al-Hamwi added, did not have enough courage and honesty to name those supporters, first and foremost the US and its tools in the region, namely Qatar, Turkey and Saudi Arabia. He pointed out that the Commission has ignored the negative impact of the unfair economic sanctions imposed on the Syrian people. Al-Hamwi said that the Commission has disregarded in its recommendations, most of which are outside its jurisdiction, the principle of the state's right to defend their citizens, which is a principal rule of the international law. Apparently, the Commission has neither heard nor seen the atrocities and massacres of al-Qaeda agents and the Takfiris in the areas that they attacked, al-Hamwi asserted. The American paper Los Angeles Times published a report revealing that Israel obtains 80 nuclear warheads and that it could double this figure at any time. The report asserted that Israel had raw materials enough to make nearly 200 nuclear warheads. An Israeli website quoted a political source as asserting that although Israel would be pleased to see the removal of chemical threats from the north, it is still worried that the success of diplomacy in the Syrian question could lead to another initiative similar to it to solve the Iranian nuclear file. In the same context, a secret document leaked from American intelligence exposed the fact that terrorists linked to al-Qaeda in Syria owned and produced the poisonous sarin gas in order to use it. The document published by the American website WND asserted that containers filled with this gas were confiscated from the terrorists of the so-called al-Nusra front along Turkey's borders with Syria. The document hinted that al-Qaeda in Iraq was involved in producing this gas. Tribal sources in Iraq exposed the existence of terrorist gangs making this gas in Iraq in order to smuggle it into Syria. Welcome back. A statement issued by the General Command of the Army and the Armed Forces said that a military helicopter was lost Monday, September 16, 2013, as it was carrying out a reconnaissance sortie to inspect the infiltration of terrorists across the Turkish borders in al-Nusra area near Bidama town in Idlib countryside. The statement said that inquiry showed that the helicopter mistakenly entered the Turkish airspace for a short distance and then it left towards the Syrian territories after immediate orders. However, while exiting, the Turkish aircraft attacked the helicopter and shot it down inside the Syrian territories. The statement added that the hasty reaction of the Turkish side, particularly that the helicopter was heading back and it was not tasked with any fighting mission, is evidence of the real intentions of Erdogan's government towards Syria, which is seeking escalation at the borders of the two countries. Minister of Endowment and Governor of Damascus met displaced families who went out of Ma'loula and found shelter at Al-Zaytun Church in Damascus.
Minister of Endowments Dr. Muhammad Abdus-Sattar Sayyid stressed that the perpetrators of the criminal acts against the Christian sanctuaries in the town of Ma'loula, Damascus countryside, do not belong to Islam, adding that Islam and Christianity share a message of happiness for humankind. Meeting families displaced from Ma'loula, the minister pointed out that Syria will remain steadfast in the face of the conspiracies and pressures, and the enemies will not be able to undermine its national stances. For his part, Governor of Damascus, Bishr Sabbah, stressed the infrastructure in Ma'loula will be rehabilitated soon, adding that the displaced families will be able to come back to their homes. The displaced families stressed determination to go back to their homes after eliminating the armed terrorist groups which wreaked havoc in the town.
In Aleppo City, the Syrian Arab Army, in cooperation with the citizen, seized a Kia Rio red car in the 3000 apartment street in Al-Hamadaniya neighborhood. The car contained 3 explosive devices, each weighing 20 kilograms. An official source in Aleppo Governorate said the explosive devices contained TNT and C4 material. In the Damascus countryside, Syrian Arab Army units achieved great progress in chasing terrorist gangs in Shab'a. They destroyed a storehouse of ammunition and rockets, in addition to a factory to produce explosive devices. Army units also killed 40 terrorists between Ma'loula and As-Sarkha. They also foiled attempts to detonate 5 explosive devices which the terrorists planted along the highway to An-Nabak. In Harasta, a sniper and several other terrorists were killed, in addition to other terrorists to the northeast of Cars Company in Jobar, including another sniper. In Barzeh of Damascus countryside, Syrian Arab Army units continued their progress in eliminating the armed terrorist groups. Syrian Arab Army units killed a number of terrorists from al-Nusra front and seized several mortar rounds and a handmade cannon. Syrian Arab Army also discovered places used by the terrorists to satisfy their desire for what they called jihad al-nikah. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced Russia's intention to reopen a military base in the New Siberian Islands, an archipelago north of the Republic of Yakutia in the Arctic region, in order to maintain control over this strategic region. During a meeting with officials at the Ministry of Defense, Putin said that Russian forces left the region since 1993, but at the present time the area has become very important in the Arctic Ocean. Putin added that Moscow will not only reopen a military base in this region, but it will reoperate the airport there and would allow cooperation with representatives of the Ministry of Emergency and water scientists, along with climate experts, to ensure the security and efficient operation of the Northern Sea route. Finally, and back to our local news, the Ministry of Social Affairs, in cooperation with the United Nations Fund for Children, UNICEF, held a workshop on the program of capacity building for the workers in the ministry in order to protect children during situations of emergency. Minister of Social Affairs, Dr. Kinda Shammat, stressed that the program is designed to train workers in the ministry and to monitor their capabilities concerning child protection. Minister Shammat said that the government seeks to protect children and women from the terrorist gangs, and the international organizations help in this field. For her part, Iti Higtons, UNICEF Deputy Representative in Syria, stressed the UNICEF's support for the Minister of Social Affairs, indicating that this workshop is part of the joint and continuous cooperation. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman Qassam, but after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Speaking during the 16th session of the General Federation of Trade Unions, PM al-Halaqi affirmed that the war on Syria has targeted the economic sector and the Syrian pound as being a symbol of their sovereignty. Al-Halaqi said that the food and medicine security and the needs of citizens are on the top of the government's priorities. The Prime Minister added that the government is working to address a shortage in flour due to terrorist attacks, indicating that it has made emergency contacts with friendly countries for a permanent maintenance of miles to get them operated at full capacity. PM affirmed that the government will continue to offer relief aid to the crisis-hit citizens through providing up to 976 makeshift residential centers. Deputy Prime Minister for Services Affairs, Minister of Local Administration, Omar Ghalawanji, said that the government's strategies at the current stage are centered on providing basic goods for citizens, water, electricity and health services, the return of the displaced to their localities and providing relief aid for them. The Minister of Transport asserted that the ministry focuses on developing and improving the Syrian ports, as this development would reflect on the economic level by increasing the good exchange and creating job opportunities. The minister also pointed out the strategic importance of increasing the capacity of Latakia and Tartus ports in order to receive modern ships with large cargo. The Director General of Marketing and Storage Establishment affirmed that the rumors about delaying the establishment from providing the local market with frozen chicken, which were imported from Iran, aim at preventing the establishment from restricting prices hike, noting that the sale process will start today with the price of 400 Syrian pounds per kilogram, as the available quantity is sufficient for many months to come. Damascus Security Exchange Index was up more than 14 points in the last session, as it closed at 1,216 points. The trading value today closed at 186,025 shares, distributed on 100 deals, with a total trading value reaching about 20,310,000 Syrian pounds. On the other hand, the banking sector was first, followed by the insurance sector. The prices of crude oil slid for the third day, as Brent crude for delivery in November fell by 0.4% to reach more than $109 a barrel, moving further away from the 6-month high in late August. European shares were down 0.3% in early trade, retreating from a 5-year high hit in the previous session. Japanese stocks also fell, with the Topix index retreating for the third time in 4 days, ahead of the Federal Reserve meeting starting today, at which it may decide to reduce the pace of its stimulus. Locally, the Jewelers Assembly set the price of the 21-carat gold at 7,900 Syrian pounds per gram, while the Rashadi golden coin was set at 57,900 Syrian pounds and the English coin was set at 65,000 Syrian pounds. The dollar was lower versus a basket of its currencies after having set a 4-week low in the previous day, with the Federal Reserve looking set to take its first step to wind down its stimulus. Investors will also be focusing on the central bank's guidance on its future policy stance tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.